Is Tudor quietly becoming a problem for Rolex? On paper, they shouldn't even be competing. Same parent company, different lanes, different customers. But here's where it gets uncomfortable for Rolex. $12,000 gets you something impressive from most brands. From Tudor, it gets you two. So what is this brand really? A cheaper Rolex or something far more? Because Tudor has built a lineup where a $4,000 watch is tested harder than most $10,000 pieces, where a GMT at $5,000 meets standards many luxury brands avoid, where a dive watch at $6,000 can handle environments that would shut others down completely. We've 14 watches from Tudor's lineup that should make an impression on you. By the end of the video, you'll see you don't need Rolex to be classy, or you'll decide you don't want anything to do with a Rolex-affiliated brand at all. Let us begin. Number 14. Tudor Ranger, 39mm, $3,550 fabric strap, or $4,025 bracelet. There's a type of person this watch was made for. They looked at the Black Bay and thought it had too much going on. The snowflake hands, the domed crystal, the vintage storytelling. They want a watch that's just a watch and would just tell the time. The Ranger is that watch. Fully brushed and not a single polished surface on the case. Its layout borrowed directly from the Rolex Explorer DNA, 12, 3, 6, 9. The MT5402 movement inside is COSC certified, 70 hours of power reserve. The T-Fit clasp is genuinely one of the best quick-adjust systems at this price. 8mm of range in 5 positions, no tools required, works in a t-shirt or a parka. Now, the thing the forums won't stop arguing about. The hour markers are printed onto the dial, not applied, not raised, painted on. On a watch pushing $4,000 in 2026, that bothers people. Go to Watch Crunch and you'll find whole threads. Collectors who bought it loved it for 3 weeks, got under a macro lens and felt a twinge of something. Looks toy-like, one user wrote. Here's the thing. The printed dial is the Ranger's DNA. The original 60s references had it. Tudor kept it on purpose. Whether that justifies the price is a genuinely personal question. The secondary market has an answer. Used Ranger 39s are trading around $2,200 to $2,500, a 40% plus haircut from retail. For a watch you plan to sell, that math is ugly. For a watch you intend to wear into the ground, the mission is still accomplished. The Ranger doesn't try to be anything else. The next watch tries to be everything. Number 13. Tudor Royal, 40mm, 2026 full rebuild, $3,675. In 2025, the Royal was a watch Tudor made because they needed something in the integrated bracelet sports category. Fine, competent. Forgotten the moment you left the AD. April 2026 changed that. The entire Royal collection was rebuilt at Watches and Wonders. New sizes are 30, 36, 40mm. New dial colors across 11 options, including salmon, burgundy, champagne, and green. New movements at every size. The 40mm now runs Tudor's in-house MT5633, giving 70 hours of power reserve and a notched bezel that actually feels premium when you turn it. Before 2026, some Royal references ran a Celita SW200. An excellent movement, but one you'll also find in a $1,500 Tissot. The upgrade to manufacture matters, not because the Celita was unreliable, but because at Tudor prices, you deserve to know what you're paying for. The integrated 5-link bracelet has real presence. For the buyer who wants the Patek Aquanaut aesthetic without the waiting list, the Royal 40 inches blue dial is a serious argument. The catch: integrated bracelet means you're in this design forever. No swapping to leather for dinner. No NATO for summer. Picture the buyer who picks this up in salmon dial, then gets home and realizes it is slightly formal with everything they own. That buyer exists in every AD. The watch has charm. Charm doesn't always translate to versatility. That's a watch for someone who knows exactly what they want. The next one is for someone who isn't sure, and somehow that's a compliment. Number 12. Black Bay 54, Tudor Blue, new 2026. $4,475, rubber or $4,725. Bracelet, 37mm, 11.2mm thin. The Black Bay 54 holds 200 meters of water resistance in a case barely thicker than 2 stacked credit cards. That combination, in 2026, is almost perverse. The new Tudor Blue version strips away the warm cream lume plots and gold accents of earlier references. What replaces them is a saturated sapphire blue so clean it reads almost clinical. Then the sunray finish catches an angle of sunlight, and everything changes. The BB54 is the most faithful reproduction Tudor makes of their 1954 diving reference, the watch that started everything. The bezel has no minute markers after the first 15 positions because the original didn't either. That's authentic. It's also technically less useful for actual dive timing. Tudor kept it anyway. There's a line in watch collecting between fidelity to history and stubborn inconvenience. The BB54 lives right on it, and that's the whole point of owning it. Inside, the MT5400 has a 70-hour power reserve and COSC certification. At 37mm in 2026, this watch is genuinely rare. Someone with a smaller wrist who tries this on at an AD does not leave without it. That's not a pitch, it's what happens. Small case, pure mission. The next watch just got bigger, but considerably sharper. Number 11, Black Bay 58202 black gilt, metas, $4,975 rubber, $5,225 revet bracelet, and $5,350 5 link. The Black Bay 58 doesn't need an introduction. Since 2018, it's been the watch Tudor enthusiasts point to when someone says, "Where do I start?" 39mm, a 1958 diving ancestor. Proportions that work on every wrist size with a suit or a t-shirt. For 2026, the honest answer is it got significantly better, in ways that only reveal themselves slowly. The new case is 11.7mm thick, with a redesigned bezel featuring subtly curved numerals and a new crown profile that sits flush. Dial text reduced to 2 lines. The MT5400U movement is now Metis Master Chronometer certified, tested in 6 positions, at 2 temperatures, at 2 power reserve levels, confirmed resistant to magnetic fields of 15,000 Gauss. That's the field strength around an MRI machine. Nobody buys a watch for MRI survival. But what that certification represents, the testing standard, the rigor, is why this watch makes Omega and Breitling buyers genuinely uncomfortable about their choices, because the pricing for what it offers is okay. Was this the first BB58 with Metis? No. The burgundy version got it in 2025. The black gilt version receives it now. Tudor is methodically certifying the entire line. In 2018, a BB58 was under $3,000. In 2026, you're at $5,000 plus. A portion of the collector community hasn't forgiven Tudor for it. Is the BB58 still accessible luxury at this price, or did Tudor quietly move the goalposts? Drop that in the comments. I want to know where you land on it. That's the most refined version of a classic. The next watch refuses to be refined, on purpose. Number 10, Black Bay Pro GMT, $4,050, fabric, rubber, or $4,375, bracelet. The Black Bay Pro has a problem. Not a quality problem, a perception problem. At 14.6mm thick, the same height as a large G-Shock, this watch feels like a small building on your wrist. And Tudor's slab-sided case design makes no attempt to hide it. The side profile is a vertical wall of steel. You know you're wearing it. Everyone knows. And yet, the Pro is the spiritual descendant of the Rolex Explorer 2 from the 70s. The cave explorer's instrument, built for reading the time underground when you couldn't tell day from night. The fixed 24-hour bezel lets you track a second time zone or distinguish AM from PM without checking anything else. It's a true GMT. The local hour hand jumps independently. The MT5652 movement is robust enough that watch repair professionals specifically recommend it for hard use. The new opaline white dial version that came out in 2025 converted a lot of people who had previously dismissed this watch. The opaline finish has a quality photographs can't reproduce, a subtle depth that shifts between matte and metallic depending on the light. In an AD, under the right lamp, it stops conversations. It still doesn't have Meta's certification. For a watch selling beside the BB58 GMT at nearly the same price, that matters more than it should. Tudor knows. The forums know. The pro community has been asking for it since 2022, politely and then less politely. Here's the thing about the Pro that collectors who've worn it long-term say, and that first-time buyers don't hear. After about 2 weeks on the wrist, the thickness stops registering. The brain recalibrates. It becomes normal. The Pro becomes the watch you reach for on the days when you don't want to worry about a watch. The question is whether the Explorer 2 heritage and the fixed bezel aesthetic is worth the bulk. For the person who's wanted an Explorer 2 since 2008 and watched the Rolex price climb past them, yes, completely. For everyone else, try it on before you decide. $4,000 of muscle. The next watch is $4,000 of philosophy and identity confusion. Number 9. Black Bay Monochrome, Metas. $4,700 to $4,900. This is where it gets uncomfortable. The Black Bay Monochrome is the most technically capable dive watch Tudor makes under $5,000, Metas certified, 41 millimeters, the MT5602, U movement. The full Submariner color scheme, black dial, white markers, black bezel, that Tudor fans had been requesting since 2012. Here's the part Tudor's PR department doesn't love. From 10 feet away, it looks like a Rolex Submariner. Not vaguely, not in an I can see the influence way. People in watch communities have done side-by-side comparisons. The snowflake hand is distinctive up close. Across a dinner table, to someone who doesn't follow watch forums, it reads as Submariner. This creates a specific dilemma. The person who genuinely wants Tudor will find the monochrome slightly awkward because half their conversations involve explaining, it's actually a Tudor. The person who wanted a Submariner but couldn't get one at retail ends up in a complicated place that no watch should put them. The people who love the monochrome without reservation, they're the ones who've owned Rolexes before, don't need to prove anything, and recognize that Tudor's Metas certification technically exceeds the Submariner's testing standards. One WatchCrunch user put it cleanly, I can afford a Submariner. I chose this instead. Different conversation. That's the buyer the monochrome was made for. Confident enough to choose quality over the name. That watch provokes a question. The next one answers it with engineering that leaves the question behind. Number 8. Pelagos 3-9 Titanium. $5,475. Pick up a stainless steel Black Bay. Now imagine putting it on and feeling essentially nothing. That's grade 2 titanium, 30% lighter than steel, 200 meters of water resistance. The ceramic bezel insert has a sunray satin finish that appears completely matte in shadow, then catches fire in direct sunlight. A reactive quality photos simply cannot show. The monoblock ceramic composite hour markers glow brighter and longer than traditional superluminova plots. This is Tudor's most technically honest watch. No vintage references, no heritage storytelling, no Foxtina, just engineering, made visible. The catch lives in the forums, and it's been there since launch. Grade 2 titanium is softer than steel. Not fragile, but bracelet links made from softer metal develop a subtle rattle that wasn't there on day one. For some, it got so bad that they sold their watches over it. Others just ignored the rattle completely. The reality is that it depends entirely on how you wear the watch. Desk work and light activity, you'll never notice. Manual work, constant travel, genuine daily abuse, the bracelet is where the material compromise eventually shows. $5,475 is not a small number. At that price, the bracelet conversation is entirely fair. Tudor knows it too. What gets missed in the middle of the criticisms is that for the buyer who understands what they're actually getting, this is one of the most complete watches in the collection. Titanium is function over form. The next watch is formed without apology and engineered specifically for those who think differently. Number 7 Pelagos FXD GMT Zulu Time. $5,300. The French Navy gave Tudor a brief. Build a watch for flight deck personnel, pilots, and rescue teams on aircraft carriers. The strap cannot be removable. On a working flight deck, no strap end should snag machinery. The timing function needs to handle both flight tracking and dive operations. The bezel needs to be bidirectional for 24-hour tracking. What came back was the Pelagos FXD GMT. Fixed strap bars. You cannot put a metal bracelet on this watch. You cannot swap to leather. A NATO strap goes on, a NATO strap comes off. That's the system, permanently. For bracelet lovers, this is a deal breaker before they've checked the movement. For everyone else, the 24-hour bidirectional ceramic bezel is the most functionally specific piece of kit Tudor makes. It's the only watch in this countdown capable of distinguishing 2 in the afternoon from 2 in the morning with no external reference. The ceramic lume plots glow longer and brighter than aluminium alternatives. What nobody fully appreciates until wearing it. The fixed bar system locks the NATO strap completely. No gap at the caseback. No lift. The whole thing wears like a single piece of equipment, which is exactly what it was designed to be. Not a fashion watch. Not pretending to be one. $5,300 is the price of a specific answer to a specific question. So the question isn't, is this worth it? But is this what you need? Designed for people who read instruments for a living. The next one was designed around a single human quirk. Number 6. Pelagos LHD, left-hand drive. $5,825. Crown on the left side. That sentence is either completely irrelevant to you, or it just made you pay attention. For a left-handed diver, a crown on the right side digs into the back of your hand with every movement. The standard Pelagos had this problem. People lived with it. Tudor actually fixed it. The LHD moves the crown to 9 o'clock. For right wrist wear, it disappears entirely. No dig. Clean. On a 42mm grade 2 titanium case rated to 500 meters, the crown placement is the most visible differentiator from the standard model. Then there's the other one. The roulette date wheel. Red numbers for odd dates, black for even, alternating around the wheel, a detail borrowed directly from vintage Rolex and Tudor references of the 60s and 70s. On a modern watch in 2026, it reads as charming anachronism, the kind of small thing that makes a collector stop mid-sentence. The Faustina lume divides opinion in a way it didn't in 2019. Pre-aging is a style choice that some collectors now find dated, literally and figuratively. The vintage authenticity argument has a shelf life. The Faustina lume divides opinion in a way it didn't in 2019. Pre-aging is a style choice that some collectors now find dated, literally and figuratively. The vintage authenticity argument has a shelf life. By 2026, it's starting to show. But here's the question you should sit with. When you are looking at $5,825 for a watch, how many other watches in that range give you a color scheme this specific, a complication this purposeful, and a detail, the roulette date wheel, that makes people at a dinner table actually ask to see your wrist? Not many. The LHD earns attention without performing for it. That's harder to make than it sounds. For the buyer who appreciates every one of those details, genuinely appreciates them, not just as talking points but as things that make daily wear feel slightly more considered, the LHD isn't expensive. It's underpriced. Built around one idea, executed perfectly. The next one was built around one color, and half the watch world lost its mind. Number 5. Black Bay 58 GMT Coke Plus 5 Link, 2026. $5,650. In 2024, when the Black Bay 58 GMT landed in the Coke configuration, black upper bezel, burgundy lower, gilt accents throughout, the watch community lost its mind. Not because the watch was perfect, because it was wanted. Collectors had been asking for a compact Tudor GMT with the red and black color scheme since Rolex retired their aluminum bezel GMT Master II back in 2007. 17 years of forum requests. When Tudor finally delivered it in 39mm, 12.8mm thin, with both COSC and Meta certification, you couldn't get one. Not on allocation. Not limited. Authorized dealers were steering customers toward Tudor Royals while they waited for the GMT Coke. The literal AD playbook from Rolex gray market culture applied to a $5,000 Tudor. The irony was not lost on anyone. The 2026 update adds a 5-link Jubilee-style bracelet. The polished center links against the gilt bezel accents changes this watch's personality, dresses it up in a way the rivet bracelet never could. The MT5450 U movement carries COSC and Metis certification, 65 hours of power reserve, a silicon hairspring, and an instantaneous date change synchronized to the local hour hand. 12.8mm thick. The older Black Bay GMT runs at 14.6. That nearly 2mm difference is the gap between a watch that lives under your shirt cuff and one that lives on top of it. Whether the 5-link version is worth the premium over the rivet? On the GMT Coke, the Jubilee aesthetic actually makes this watch belong at a dinner table. That's not nothing for a diver. The next watch is for the person who wants something with no crowd and a movement co-written with one of watchmaking's great names. Number 4. Black Bay Chrono Panda Steel, $6,650. The MT5813. Inside this watch shares engineering DNA with the Breitling B1. Take a moment with that. The B1 is one of the most celebrated in-house chronograph movements in production. Breitling puts it in the Navitimer, the Chronomat, the Premier, watches that cost $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. The Tudor chronograph caliber is a co-development. Same engineering architecture, same column wheel mechanism, Tudor's own finishing and standards. $6,650. The Panda dial, white face, dark subdials, is the most legible version Tudor makes. Still, at a glance in low light, a chronograph dial this busy takes a beat longer to read than you want from a timing instrument. That's not a Tudor problem, that's a chronograph problem. All of them have it. The 41mm case is the right size for a chronograph. It has genuine mass, you feel it in your hand before it's on your wrist. Some people find that reassuring. It communicates substance. Others find it heavy. Watch what you pick up first in an AD, and that reaction tells you something. What the secondary market tells you that the brochure doesn't. The BB Chrono trades around $3,900 used. A 40% drop from retail. If you need to sell this in 2 years, go in knowing that number first. But consider what $6,650 actually buys. A COSC certified in-house chronograph movement with 70 hours of power reserve, built in the architecture of one of watchmaking's finest sport calibers, in a case rated to 200 meters of water resistance. Find another chronograph at this price with those credentials. The list is genuinely very short. That watch has engineering ambitions. The next one has engineering achievements, and a bracelet built from a material that changes the whole conversation. Number 3. Black Bay Ceramic. Full ceramic bracelet, 2026. $7,725. How many watch companies make a full ceramic bracelet? Fewer than 10 in the world, including brands charging 3 times what Tudor charges. Ceramic is extraordinary. It is scratch-resistant to the point where only diamond or other ceramic can mark it, keeps its finish essentially forever, weighs almost nothing. It's also brutally brittle. Drop a ceramic link on the tile, and you are picking up several pieces. Machining bracelet links from it, getting tolerances right, so each link pivots without cracking. Engineering a clasp that holds under impact is genuinely difficult manufacturing. Rolex doesn't do it. Omega doesn't. As of April 2026, Tudor does. The 41mm case is matte black ceramic. The bezel insert is matte black ceramic. The 3-link bracelet is matte black ceramic. The dial is charcoal with darkened, luminescent details. From a distance, this watch seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. Up close, the sunray satin finish on each link shifts in your hands. The dual-folding ceramic clasp is Tudor's own engineering, designed for the material from scratch, not translated from a steel design. The acknowledged limitation. The bezel ring, the structural frame around the ceramic insert, is still PVD-coated steel. Over time, the ring shows wear marks where ceramic stays perfect. Tudor's answer is that a ceramic bezel ring would be structurally impractical. The forum's answer is that it bothers them more than it probably should, and they discuss it at length on Watch You Seek. $7,725 puts the Black Bay Ceramic in conversation with the Omega Seamaster in ceramic and the lower tier of IWC. Neither has a full ceramic bracelet. Somewhere, the person who bought the 2021 Black Bay Ceramic on its hybrid strap is looking at this on Tudor's website. Not quite regret. Something more like being told the story wasn't finished yet when they thought it was. Material engineering taken to its conclusion. Number 2 isn't about material at all. It's about what 100 years looks like when you're paying attention. Number 2. Tudor. Monarch. $5,875. In 1926, Hans Wilsdorf registers the Tudor trademark. His explicit intention is a Rolex-level watch at an accessible price. He parks the name, doesn't launch immediately, builds Rolex into something worth having a sibling first. 100 years later, exactly, Tudor makes the watch that carries that weight. The Monarch. The case is faceted in a way nothing else in Tudor's current collection is. Sharp angles, mirror-polished center links on the 2-link bracelet, geometry borrowed from the angular sports watch language of the 70s. The era of the Royal Oak and the Nautilus, watches that redefine sports watch by being made of precious metal and absolutely refusing to look soft. Inside, the MT5662 2U, decorated with Côtes de Genève striping and perlage finishing, hand-worked surface textures applied to the bridges and main plate that take significant time to do correctly. The most dressed movement Tudor has put in a non-precious metal watch. The caseback is exhibition glass. They want you to look. The California dial layout, Roman numerals on the top half, Arabic below, is an unusual choice. Unconventional enough that the first photographs divided opinion immediately, then the watch landed on wrists at Watches and Wonders, and photographs suddenly made sense. This dial needs to be experienced at an angle, in real light. COSC and Meta certified, 65 hours of power reserve, 11.9 millimeters thick, and it has a screw-down crown, properly sealed, 100 meters water resistant. At $5,875, the Monarch costs $2,200 more than the comparable Royal 40mm. The difference is finishing. The difference is movement decoration. The difference is the meaning, which is either worth $2,200 to you or it isn't. Some collectors look at this and think, Tudor finally made the watch that doesn't reference anything else. No vintage dive history. No sports watch ancestor. Just 100 years of knowing how, expressed in one watch. The woman who bought a Royal 40 last year is going to look at the Monarch and feel a very specific kind of quiet regret. The anniversary. Number one is the argument the anniversary was making. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. You walk into a store or browse online, and everything looks the same, but behind the scenes, there's a system. Prices aren't always fair, availability is controlled, and one bad decision can leave you overpaying for something that doesn't even hold its value. That's why I created a complete free insider guide to buying watches. Inside, you'll find the best watches to buy, the watches to avoid, and how to choose a watch that actually fits your style and budget long term. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the free guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. Number 1. Black Bay Ceramic, full bracelet, $7,725. Something needs to be said before the explanation. The Monarch is $5,875. The Black Bay Ceramic full bracelet is $7,725. By price, the ceramic should sit at number 1. By significance to Tudor's centenary story, by what the Monarch says, it earns second position. This list ranks by impact on what Tudor means going forward. The ceramic is number 1 because it's the technical achievement that changes the conversation permanently. Tudor's ceramic program started in 2021 when they launched the original Black Bay ceramic, the first watch submitted to Metas for certification. Second watch in history to receive it, after the Omega Seamaster. That alone was a statement. But the 2021 version wore a hybrid leather rubber strap. A full ceramic watch on a non-ceramic strap is an unfinished sentence. The 2026 version finishes it. 3-link ceramic bracelet, dual folding ceramic clasp. Tudor's own engineering, built around the material's properties rather than translated from steel. They didn't take a steel bracelet and coat it. They designed from scratch for a material that shatters on tile but survives the equivalent of an MRI field. The movement is the MT5602, UCOSC and Meta certified, 70 hours of power reserve, 200 meters of water resistance in a case made from something most people associate with coffee mugs and kitchen tiles. That paradox is the entire point of this watch. $7,725 puts the Black Bay ceramic beside the Omega Seamaster 300M in ceramic and the entry tier of IWC. Neither has a full ceramic bracelet. Tudor registered the trademark in 1926, didn't really launch until the 40s, spent decades as the affordable version of something else, hit the Black Bay in 2012, and finally found its own thread. In 2026, the lineup runs from $3,500 to $7,725. 100 years in, the argument is no longer whether Tudor is worth taking seriously. The argument is, which one? You've probably spent more time thinking about one of these than you'd like to admit, comparing prices across tabs, checking the secondary market, trying to figure out if you're buying a tool or buying a feeling. That confusion is worth understanding before you spend $5,000 getting it wrong. The buyer's guide in the pinned comment breaks down the Tudor decision properly. It will tell you which buyer profile matches, which watch, and what the secondary market actually says about long-term value. It'll save you more than the cost of the watch, probably. So just as you are checking out the guide, like this video and subscribe.